In this video, I want to talk about rhetorical appeals. It's also called the rhetorical triangle, and there are shockingly 3 parts to it: ethos, pathos, and logos. I will go through each one in a future slide, but ethos is very basically the author's trustworthiness or credibility. Pathos is how the author appeals to feelings and emotions of the audience, their audience. And logos is the appeal to logic, rational thinking used to guide their audience. So first, ethos. Ethos is credibility, and the way to remember it is that ethos is ethics. How trustworthy, credible, and believable is the author of this argument? Just because they are standing behind a podium or they say they know something doesn't mean they actually do. So how do you know, or how do they try to convince you that they are in fact trustworthy or credible and that you can believe them? Many speeches are preceded by somebody who stands up and introduces the speaker. This is a huge part of ethos. Then again, the author will try and do this themselves. They will name drop throughout their speech, or they will put something in their written argument that proves that they know somebody or know something that allows you to believe that they are knowledgeable in this area. As such, how knowledgeable are they about the subject, and how do you know? How does the speaker convince you of their credibility, if they do at all? It doesn't mean that they do. It's also important to know what part of the argument allows you to answer these questions. If you are reading an argument, for example, and you put it aside and say, wow, they are very trustworthy. If somebody says, well, how do you know? You should be able to answer that as a careful scholar of rhetorical analysis. If you don't, then you need to go back and look at it and see what made you think that, because there's a reason, I promise. Pathos is emotion and feeling. So very basically, what emotions are provoked from the argument that you have just witnessed in some way. So it's important to know how and why certain emotions are aroused within the argument. If something made you laugh or cry or cringe or yell out in anger, there's a reason why that happened. And we will look very closely at these in future slides, but you need to be aware of this because the author very likely did it on purpose. And you need to consider how they made these emotions come from you. So logos is very basically logic. So the truth, real life, as in any argument, can be real or imagined. So be aware of the logic presented within an argument. You will be the expert of what logic comes from you. How does the author make you feel that they have made a logical point? So what supporting information is used to support the argument? Do they use facts and statistics? If they do, from where? There's where a little bit of ethos comes through. If they tell you a story, for example, if you need to understand whether or not you believe it and where it came from. So anything that makes you say, wow, that is really logical. I believe that. This must be true because they said so and so and such and such. That is logos. So what parts of the argument are firsthand and what is drawn from an outside source? This is where the author can get very sneaky. Sometimes they produce something that sounds like truth, but it really is. Similarly, they can produce something that makes it sound like they actually have experience here, but they don't. So you need to know very specifically what came from their brain and what they drew from other brains. Most great arguments use other sources, but they also make it obvious that they've used them. Also, what information is used to back up their argument? So how logical and trustworthy is that information? Question everything. It's important to consider how trustworthy this information is and where it came from. I can tell you one of my favorite jokes is that, 65% of all statistics are made up on the spot. Get it? Haha. I made that up. It sounds pretty good because I use a statistic. It came from my own brain, it came from nowhere else, and it's a joke. So you need to be aware of these things, careful purveyor of rhetorical analysis. So the next slide, here's a preview. The next slide next presentation, excuse me, I will show you examples in pictures and video and in print of logos, ethos, and pathos. Thank you for watching, and let me know if you have any questions.